Welcome to Nav Chat, the show for the New Zealand orienteering and navigation sports community.
Tom, how's it going?
Good. Another sunny day in the mountains here.
Yeah, I thought you were in Hamilton, but I don't know where you are these days.
No, it's taken me 2 years of Zooming, and I've figured out how to add a background. So pretty happy about this. This is up on the Craigieburn Range. Amazing cell phone reception, as you can tell from my very crisp video.
Yeah.
Very bright. It is the longest day. Might be in the evening, but it's still very sunny up here. It's great. A lot of snow cover. I'm on the southern slopes, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
How are you? What's been happening?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm training well. I'm really looking forward to Oceania. I've got some fitness back and I'm really keen to race hard, and I hope other people are entering. The entries were slow, and that's totally understandable. Just everyone's a little bit uncertain, but we're booked accommodation, got the cars, taking the grassy knoll shop. So I hope it's going to be as big as I expect it. But yeah, I do understand if the uncertainty around events has kind of got to people now, and it's too hard. Yeah.
No, it'll be great. I unfortunately can't make it. I prioritised going on a big tramp, but pretty jealous. There's a few maps in there which we're going to talk about later, which are pretty classic Canterbury maps, which will be a real treat to run on, I'm sure. Sounds like you've also been along to a couple of training camps as well.
Yeah, December's always a month for the training camps. I'm often at the under 23 camp as a coach, and yeah, that's definitely a passion of mine, pushing those up and coming young talents, trying to level them up in the forest. So it's great to see the more experienced orienteers there and really push their boundaries, and also the younger people at the under 23 camp who are just tasting high performance style training for the first time. So yeah, I really like it.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't been to one for a few years, but it's a really good way to consolidate skills, having orienteering on back-to-back days, different sessions to develop different skills. And that relates well to our guest this month. You had a chat with Joe Lynch.
Yeah, so Joe was at both of these camps recently as an athlete at the under 23 camp and as a coach at the Wellington Junior Camp. So I chat to him about what he tries to achieve in these training camps from both perspectives in those two different camps. And yeah, we just riff on a few of the things we enjoyed. So let's take a look.
Cool. Right, Joe, thanks for coming on Nav Chat.
It's all right, Jane.
Yeah, keen to hear about the camps that you've been on. I was with you on the under 23 camp, but fill me in on the junior Wellington camp. Who was coaching and how did it work?
Yep, there was 4 coaches. So it was myself, Brianna, Kaya, and Simon. And there was about 25 kids from Wellington and also quite a few from Taranaki that had driven down some adventure races from there. And we were staying in Marston and did 4 days of training around the Marston area and then a final sprint day in Wellington.
Oh, cool. What kind of age and abilities is this camp pitched at?
They were high school. I think there was a few year 13s, but sort of more 10, 11. So there was mainly red people, but some orange level.
Okay. Right. So they're all pretty experienced. It wasn't quite a beginner camp.
Yeah, no, experienced orienteers. They were doing some trainings without tapes or anything out in the forest. Yeah.
Cool. What kind of exercises do you give to those kind of kids? And just winding it back a bit, how do you pitch the whole idea of doing training for orienteering to them?
Yep. So I think the point of these camps sometimes is to break down the skills that the more experienced people at under 23 camp do a bit more subconsciously, but they might not be doing those skills at quite the same level. And so we sort of break down exercises into a certain thing. one of those, which I can bring up, was focusing on attack points. So this is in Mingi Mingi Forest, and this exercise, which I believe might have been planned by Lara originally, had a whited out area in the control circle for everything but the actual feature. And therefore this was forcing them to pick an attack point that was outside of the circle for them to navigate from. So all these runners knew what attack points were, but this made them sort of focus on that technique and very consciously choose an attack point for every control, since they didn't have the whole map available to them.
Yeah, that's right. So, for example, number 1, there's a hill just before the circle, just kind of on the edge of the circle, and you want them to double down on using that as the destination and then really ticking that off as the attack point.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
think I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, when you ask, I think, orienteers at this age about attack points, I think they all understand the idea, but the challenge for all of us really is actually doing it properly when we're under pressure, right? Those habits tend to be hard to muster on race day once you're getting a little bit stressed. So it's good to break them down and just do one simple concept at a time, really entrain that process.
Yes, that's very true. And further on in the camp, on some other trainings, we had some of the coaches running behind the athletes and telling them, without stopping, can you tell me what your attack point is or what the next feature you're navigating to, and then maybe exit direction as well. So trying to do that while they're running without stopping to look at the map to sort of check that they are already doing this.
Yeah, that's putting the pressure on them for sure. I don't know how good I would have been doing that as a kind of beginner red or an orange level orienteer. I'm not sure I understood things quite that well at this age. So yeah, that's sounding like pretty decent training. And how does that compare to the under 23 camp from your perspective?
So at the under 23 camp, I guess most of our trainings, we're not having a big talk at the start about specifically like this exact technique we're doing, and we don't have to ask what is an attack point, what makes a good attack point. We should all be able to do that ourselves, but it is sort of fine tuning. And I think also for a lot of us, it's quite a intense period of orienteering to sort of regather all those skills, which we might become a bit rusty over time. This was one exercise that focused a lot on our compass. So we had an area of map at and just around the controls, but then between there it was all blanked out except for some little portions if you needed some safety. And so this is really forcing us to keep a really good compass bearing and probably a bit of distance estimation as well. So that's obviously not realistic in an actual race. You won't have a map like this. But yeah, some of us will definitely lose that compass skill a bit over time. So yeah,
it's definitely getting more advanced. Like you wouldn't throw a beginner red in this exercise straight away. Yeah. So how did you find these exercises? Were you rusty, or have you done some more orienteering in the latter half of the year?
I have done a little bit. Lucky being in Christchurch, we have had a few events and trainings. I didn't find this too bad. I really got into a good rhythm. Was a little bit left on number 1, but after that, I sort of flowed through all the controls quite well. We were lucky, and the planners to be a little bit nice. Sometimes we had a window in the middle. So this is really one of those cases where you take a compass, you don't have to worry about the control at all. You're just getting to this window, and then that's almost your attack point, sort of before you're going into 3. But yeah, I really enjoyed this training, and it did force me to focus on my compass a lot more than in a usual league where I'll use it in a combination with other techniques and perhaps not getting the most out of the compass work.
We did a lot of high intensity stuff at the under 23 camp as well. How does that fit into your training specifically for orienteering as the navigation side of it as opposed to the physical side of it?
I really liked the high intensity stuff. I think my brain sort of switches into another gear when I'm doing that. If I'm not sort of, in that flow, like I was for the compass exercise, sometimes my orienteering can be very lazy. So I think that afternoon we had a sort of middle distance type race, a mass start, which was 2 loops, and I went full speed for the first loop and then slowed down for the second loop. And I feel I do start, sort of my mind wanders when I'm not right in the zone racing at full speed. I feel like I get a lot of value from racing at that high intensity within a training session.
Yeah, I also find that if I've done a lot of orienteering training at a slower pace, then I still feel rusty going into a new race. I haven't had any practice at getting the process going fast, and so I take shortcuts in order to get it all to fit into my brain. So I definitely agree that doing things faster concentrates me a bit more as well. So I think there's quite useful stuff to do on a training camp, and bringing the pressure with other people around. I'd hate doing that stuff in a race without having done that at training. I find it, I get focused, but then there's also this huge distraction of other people around you.
It does give you a lot of confidence when you've done that stuff in training before. It's just the race is just another one of those.
So how do these training camps fit into the whole season for you?
For me, this is sort of, it's a pause from my regular running schedule. Normally I do be doing intervals on the track or something a couple of times a week. But we are still doing quite a bit of high intensity stuff, especially with the sprint training. And some of the exercises we took quite easy, sort of jogging. But in the forest, it does take a lot more out of your legs than normal training. So I sort of use this as a chance to really boost my nav. I try to come into it with high level of fitness, and then this is it takes my nav up to the next level. In the next few weeks, I'll be doing more running training and maybe the odd orienteering if I can fit it in before Oceania January.
That is quite convenient timing with Oceania coming up, that we could get in some really good quality training. Would have been a massive shock to go into those races without any orienteering. I do find it's obviously convenient to have these camps in December. It seems to be a good time where everyone can take time away from the other things they do to all come together. But they do float out on their own a little bit. It's definitely great to have it in the middle of the off season. Maybe in the future we can have some more closer to some of the races. It seems to be a thing happening a little bit more recently. We've had some mini camps.
Especially sort of following through to nationals. You don't want to lose all this momentum that you've built. So just sort of keep building that up to nationals and other trials and etc. So I hope that has put you in a good place coming into the not Oceania Championships. I'm sure the racing will be as hot as ever. So good luck for those races coming up, and I'll see you down there. Thanks, Shane. It'll be good.
Good to hear from Joe. Did you find it interesting?
Man, I miss those camps. I need to prioritize getting back along to them. I think he's really hit on some of the really valuable things that a training camp has to offer. He obviously is a guy who's got a lot of thought into his orienteering. He's very good at his orienteering as well, and it was quite motivating to hear him talk about it.
I found it really motivating and scary.
with that. Joe is definitely the fastest person at the camp. I couldn't keep up with him in the forest. So it's a kick up the bump for me as well to really knuckle down over these final weeks before the Oceania races. Yeah, and it was great for my orienteering as well. As a coach, I'm doing hours each day of either chasing people or putting out markers beforehand. And yeah, it's good for me.
Yeah. In terms of learning, I think there are a couple of interesting things that he kind of alluded to in what he was talking about. There was the different speeds and the relevance of bringing different speeds of orienteering into your training, I think is something that's really relevant to pull out of what Joe was talking about, and something that everyday orienteers can apply. We've often talked about the concept of orienteering speed and running speed, and how it's this dynamic relationship between how fast we can run and how fast we can orienteer. Is that something you talk about with people you coach?
Yeah, it is something I talk about. And the great thing about under 23 camp is people understand this. They've experienced these concepts themselves. So you can actually talk about it more formally, and people get involved in the discussion. So it is something that I've also grappled with in trying to come to terms with my own orienteering. And yeah, now I really use training camps as a way to leverage my understanding of that trade-off between running speed and navigation quality. And the great thing about a training camp is you've got the time to tackle that from both ends, right? You can do slow stuff in the morning and then have a rest after an hour and a half of orienteering, and then do a half an hour kind of race simulation in the afternoon with a mass start, and really train the navigation quality from one perspective, and then train that like high pressure simplification style navigation in the mass start.
Because to unpack that a little bit more for the everyday orienteer, lots of people in orienteering have a kind of trajectory which is quite improvement, then a plateau, or perhaps getting worse, then an improvement, then a plateau, and getting worse. And often that gradual process corresponds with the improvement comes as your orienteering speed increases. As your fitness also rises as well, you get to a point where your fitness surpasses your speed of being able to orienteer. You enter a plateau period or a slight decline before you're able to make the next step with your orienteering and again start to improve. It's that technical element that is often holding people back as their fitness gets better. So I guess with a training camp, what you're trying to do is you're trying to not just teach and practice these skills at a slow speed, but to give people an opportunity to put them into practice while they're at their physical limit with those faster afternoon sessions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think the buck stops with those faster sessions. If you can't handle them in training, then probably can't handle it in a race either.
So wheels are coming off in training, you're going to be like, you're doing too much risking to try and run that in a race.
Yeah. And sometimes people are fine at the slower speed, but then the wheels fall off when you're going faster. So the buck does stop with that faster training. And you could say that a lot of the slower training is just preparing your brain so that your pattern recognition and your mental models are actually in place to enable you to do that simplification in the faster, high intensity orienteering.
Yeah. And that's a good point. That's when you talk about simplification and mental models and things, we can kind of think a bit more broadly in terms of problem solving techniques. And like, I guess, it's a bit into psychology theory, I guess, but trying to think of the concept of heuristics and how they apply to orienteering. So a heuristic is like a approach to problem solving that is an approximate, I guess, any method that kind of gives you an approximation or a practical method to solve something that might not give you the exact answer, but would allow you to process it more quickly. So an example in orienteering, which we all know, is simplification. We've got a complex map. We want to simplify the mental model, simplify the map of the terrain, and go and more efficiently complete a task. The important thing, though, is that heuristics bring with them a whole lot of traps and things that are really relevant that can trip us up. And I think a lot of the time in increasing speed and orienteering, it's these heuristic traps where we start to encounter the limitations of these mental models that slows us down. An example would be, for example, we have like humans have a bias to like recency or to first seen. So if we are expecting to, if we've done something and something's happened before, we're more inclined to expect that to happen again. Another one would be like our anchoring bias, and that's super relevant in orienteering. That's parallel error, right? We've employed a heuristic like simplification to try and tackle a complicated leg. We have seen what we think are the features because we've been rushing and going quickly, but we've actually had anchoring bias. We've been expecting to see a hill with a small knoll. We've misidentified something, and then because we're using this simplified problem-solving model, we've been drawn off down this path. And I think that if we reflect on our orienteering when we're trying to go faster, it is our mental models and our ability to execute them don't increase as fast as our running speed.
Yep, definitely. I think that's true, and I think that maps onto my teenage years of orienteering pretty closely. I'd get better, and then my navigation would seem to get worse. I'd just have like a bad half a year, and then I'd kind of get better for the next few years. So I definitely understand that, and I think that mental models and simplification is the final skill. Really, it never really ends. You're always fine-tuning and improving these fast decision-making skills. But orienteering is not about making things more complicated all the way to the end. It's actually coming up with these shortcuts and simplifications that makes the final steps once you've got a grip on it. From then onwards, it is about coming up with these simplifications.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think it is a pretty complicated skill. We can try and break it down into its little bits, but then we have to be able to put them back together and execute them really quickly. So there is definitely a place in training for these sessions that Joe was talking about, where you have broken everything down and then you try and run it together really quickly. Because ultimately, orienteering is about speed. So you need to have not just practice the individual parts, but have step by step increase the speed that you can execute them. And I think while you're doing it, it won't appeal to everybody, but I like the concept of like thinking of heuristic traps when analyzing your orienteering and trying to think, what were the problem solving techniques I was using to shortcut this complex challenge? And where was I tripping up? And is there something that's repeatedly happening? Can I address it? And then I need to test my solution at increasing speed and orienteering to make sure that it's applicable on race day.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And the message I'd send to my younger self is to kind of get on top of this concept of heuristics earlier. I think I spent too many years trying to navigate more intensely and trying to read more, and it kind of just went against the grain of my brain a bit too much. I think that there were times when I was not reading enough, obviously, but I eventually realized there's a limitation to that. You actually can't read everything.
Absolutely.
And
to get better, you need to have things to focus on, and just saying you're going to navigate harder is actually counterproductive.
Yes, and even if you do manage to navigate harder, at what cost? Like you have to navigate better, but not harder. And understanding that distinction early, I think, might have helped me a little bit. But it was seeing a few top orienteers like Thierry Georgiou do it, and even Warren Key in Australia is quite big on this quite intense simplifications, and seeing those guys do so well with it kind of made me just rethink. It really challenged my worldview even. Yeah.
It'd be quite interesting probably to sit down with a bunch of orienteers who have been around for a little while, and just to hear what they, or maybe have them mic'd up while they were running a leg and just sort of like commentating what they were thinking, because it would be really interesting to see how different kind of mindsets and different like mental models are applied in the real world. Maybe that's a 2022 project to try and do a couple of mic'd up legs with people commentating what they're doing, mistakes and all.
I would love to, actually. And we do a bit of this verbalization stuff on the training camp. And there's a very distinct difference between those who are really on top of their orienteering and those who are newer to the kind of high performance stuff, you can really see just the specificity and the focus in what they're looking for and what they're talking about. Whereas with someone who's a bit newer to high performance, they're commenting on a few things, and then there's a gap where they're not really sure what to think about. And yeah, you can really notice a difference. So that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm really keen to mic up if we can get something that sounds good.
Write that down for Nav Chat 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, should we roll into our news segment? What's been happening around in orienteering in New Zealand and around the world? You've got some stuff queued up for us.
Yep. Quick reminder, team selections are open at the moment. So if you're interested, maybe you're not certain, but if you're interested, just put your name down for JWOC or World Orienteering Champs. There'll also be a selection at some point for World University Orienteering Champs. So have a think. If you're not sure, put your name down and take a look at the European calendar. Lots of races to do in Europe. Could be the first year we can travel for a while. So hey, I put my name down for WOC, and I'm not sure if I'll make it. I'm not sure if I'll be in good shape at trials, but don't leave yourself out.
Sweet, nice. I'm too old. Can't do that anymore. IOF ranking awards.
Yeah,
a new set of awards from IOF. Tell us about them, Gene.
This is new. So orienteering is a Europe kind of eccentric sport, but it's trying not to be. It's trying to remind everyone that it's a global sport. But I mean, there's such a concentration of people in Europe, but there are all these regions that do have their own kind of regional orienteering champs, like we have an Oceania championship over here. And their IOF is acknowledging just the top athletes from all regions. So congrats to Tim Robinson and Lizzie Ingham for being announced as the top male and female Oceania orienteers. So that's cool. A shout
out for New Zealand against Australia. And what I'd argue is the strongest region outside of Europe.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. The New Zealand and Australia competition has got stronger and stronger, I think. And
non-Europe, we could start a rival non-Europe WOC.
Yeah.
Non-European, NEOC, non-European orienteering champs.
And anti-Europe champs.
Anti-Europe, yeah. Nice work. Lizzie and Tim, top of the game for a long time. It's good to see.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned this at the start. You're off down to Oceania, or not Oceania champs.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked at this program and I'm pretty excited. I think the quality is through the roof, actually. These are all great areas. I'm really looking forward to all of them. There's no specialization. I'm going to be taking every day as if it's the race I'm there for. I've got a few maps to look at. If you're keen,
sounds good.
Here's Leithfield. So this has been used for middle distance. It's the two-person relay now. So it's not the Oceania relay. They're doing a two-person relay. This is.
I think I ran here like years ago.
Yeah, we tend to hang out in this coastal detailed section quite often. I'm not sure which part of the map they're using, but it's cool. I really, really rate this area.
It's it's got the big wide open areas that you think, just use your compass in there. And then it's also got the super intense detail and you think, I'll read the detail, but probably need to use your compass in there just as much.
Yeah. Here's an example of a race I did a few years ago at Leithfield. And you can see me just faffing in the green, like not really being decisive enough. You really just need to be going much straighter, like than what I'm kind of wobbling around a little bit in there. You can go straighter. In the white as well, you can definitely go straighter. And in the really detailed area, it's really about that simplifying and hitting the trails fast and just finding the really distinctive features, because there's so much going on there. If you lose contact, it's going to be very tough to relocate.
Yep, so definitely repetitive features, lots of parallel error risk. Don't take the beach.
The beach is slow, sandy thing.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Now
remember?
this next map,
Yeah.
I can remember. Yeah, that's the rule of thumb everywhere, isn't it? Never take the beach. The beach is always the wrong route choice. Now this is a good map. This is a legendary map.
Yeah, I do think it is kind of legendary because it is so unique, and we also see it so often as we drive. If you ever drive to Arthur's Pass, you've had your face pressed against the glass, wondering if that area was available for orienteering. It's across the road from Castle Hill, just a few kilometers further down, and it's a magnificent sight from the road, and it's even more magnificent when you're orienteering there. It's got these mazy labyrinth areas between the rocks and cliffs, maybe more so than the Castle Hill map on the other side of the road, which
Yeah, I'd
is
say so.
more
The slope
single
adds-
boulders.
The slope adds an interesting dynamic to it as well. The fact that you do have some contour information to help you underneath, but also to confuse you.
Yeah, so yeah, there is contour detail, as you can see, and the slopes and the gullies are mixed in with that. So yeah, it's
This
a
little
tricky
wee
one.
area here, last time I oriented on this little wee area was at Twark, and
Oh.
we had a topo map
Yeah.
to try and find controls in this area. So go figure. I mean, it was perfect Twark terrain, absolutely perfect. Very difficult to find the controls. I don't know about you, Gene, but events that stick in mind here are like downhill intervals in the steep rock area.
Yeah, just looking at this, there is a bit of a, it's not all downhill. There are some definitely downhill vibes here.
Yeah, 9,
You
10,
can see
11, 12.
9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12. Yeah, so this was the last time I was on this map also. This was a training camp. This is not my GPS, this is Nick Hand's GPS. And yeah, he's hitting most things pretty well,
Very tidy.
pretty tidy.
Oh, a little bit of a wobble, actually 10, 11, a little bit. Although maybe that's his route choice. He's tried to stay outside the detail and then cut it. hasn't he?
Yeah, it's definitely a safer way. I think it would have been faster to come from the top into 11. But hey, I think just keeping smooth through this terrain, you should do pretty well.
Yep.
Overall, just no getting trapped behind those big cliffs.
Nice. Oh,
Yes,
such a good
so,
terrain. Very
yeah.
jealous you getting to run it.
I'm looking forward
What
to
about
it.
the long distance? Where are we heading for the long? Or where are you heading for the long?
I think we're heading here. So Laidmore, this is not an area I'm familiar with. We're north of Christchurch. And yeah, Pine Forest. Maybe some mixed natives in the gullies. Maybe there's some open on the map as well. Really not sure what they've got in store for us here,
Interesting.
but obviously I'm always excited for the long distance races and pretty keen to push the limits of myself and leave it all on the line. So this looks like a new area, which is really exciting.
Sweet. Very good.
And finally, I just wanted to get excited about these races in Oamaru the weekend after. So the final 2 races of the whole series. Definitely not missing these. So Humpy Bumpy is our limestone area. I couldn't find a map for that, but I was there in 2009 for Oceania, so a long time ago. But I remember it being quite fun. When were you last at Humpy Bumpy, which is not this map, but that open farmland limestone area, slumpy and cliffs and stuff?
Canterbury Champs, maybe? Some years ago?
Yeah, it's definitely been used more recently, and I haven't
Yeah.
been there.
I agree. I think that, there's some real hidden gems down that part of the world.
Yeah, and this is Kuriheka. So we used this for nationals 3 years ago, and there's a lot more of this area, of this these Kanuka forested valleys. There's a lot more of this to the north and west of this area. So, man, this would be cool if they could map more of it. I'm really looking forward to this area specifically.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just kind of wild, but the forest was pretty easy to get through. So such a treat to be in a kind of a wilderness feeling environment, not like an artificial pine forest. Definitely had that wild vibe, but was very accessible and you could run through the forest quite nicely. Really cool.
Sweet. I've never been there, so one to put on the list. Now, heading internationally, we've got a few more maps to talk about.
Oof, we have. So World of O always do a route to Christmas in December. They post one really interesting route choice that they've seen over the year, and this is one to take a look at. You can jump on worldofo.com and you'll see all the route to Christmas links are all over the front page there. There is a lot of new mapping stuff here for those who haven't seen the underpasses yet and how they're mapped in the new version of IceProm. There is a lot going on here. And when you think about like the idea of our mental models, how we're visually recognizing these orienteering maps and simplifying them quickly to make decisions, we're going to have to recalibrate that for sprint orienteering, and the new symbols haven't really been used in New Zealand much. This is...
Can you run through the green hashed area? So the grey, black striped area?
Yes, so there's a building on top and it's underpass underneath.
Oh, wow. But is it the same level of... So from 6 to 7, could you...
This is where...
underpass... Could you go head like north towards the road in the underpass?
Yeah. There's a... Yeah, so here's a zoomed in bit. So this is the area of interest, and it's actually really quite hard to work out because you can actually get very close to the control, but you're on the wrong level. And it's probably a bit too hard to... I could draw a little bit on the map here. Yeah, you can come in here. But you're actually kind of trapped. This is actually on the lower level. You can only get here through here actually, which is underpass all the way out, or coming into the control like this.
Wow.
And so it's an absolute trap, and you have to realize that beforehand. So this is all on top through here basically. So that's no good. You can actually, if you're standing here, basically this just looks like a big building. This is just at the top level. This is just all building here. So it's no good. It's no good to be up there.
You had a big article that explained all this. A link to was there?
Yeah, that's right. So navigationsports.ca. They go in depth on this area, and I think it's worth noting that I'm not sure that this area would be okay for a race. I think this is quite cool for training, which is kind of what they're doing with it, because it is. We'll see. But I haven't actually been to the terrain. The mappers talk about how long it took them to come up with this interpretation, but as you can see, it's very hard to interpret what's going on when there's 3 layers together. I think that's the part that makes it really hard to race on, when there's 3 layers.
Yeah,
it's kind of ambiguous. So they've done a really great job, and as far as pushing the boundaries of sprint mapping, this is the frontier. So huge kudos to Jeff and
we check a link in the podcast notes
for working this out. I'll definitely make this link easily available, because you should go straight here and read this article now if you're serious about sprint orienteering in the future, because you have to know how to interpret these multi-level things. They are coming. Multi-level orienteering, the new sprint standard enables these areas to actually be used as multi-level areas, whereas before it was just unusable. So we've got to get our heads around that.
Nice. You had something else from Rich Christmas? Another map?
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
I thought I'd pick this one up. Most of them are recent maps, and I saw this little gem in the Rich Christmas.
Other antiquated orienteers like myself might remember this.
Absolutely. Who won this race?
Olav Lundinez, I believe.
Olav Lundinez as a junior.
JWOC 2007. My first JWOC. This was near Dubbo. Sapabulga? Can't remember the map name. but a really, really cool map. It's very, as you can tell, very rocky. This is 1 to 15,000. There'd been a bit of rain preceding, because it was in August. It was actually like pretty green for Australia, and we trained on it earlier, or adjacent areas earlier in the summer, and everything was dead and brown. But this was like green and lovely, and yeah, very cool area. I remember that
stony on the ground, like all the stony
Very
ground
rocky.
mapping, but like are these little stones, like the small
sort of
black
like-
dots?
Sort of like, if my memory is right, you could run on them, but like it was definitely like rock sized rather than small pebbles.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
not quite rock hopping, but like an uneven surface. And I just remember a lot of this was about like contour reading, and then joining up the areas of the grey, the open rock.
Did you go around the bottom or up and over?
This was a long time ago, Gene. I could not tell you.
I tend to remember some analysis of the winners, and they were doing a lot of evasive maneuvers, stuff like this, and there was a lot of time lost by people trying to go through the.
I think I used a lot of saddles. I think I did use saddles a lot, but I can't remember. I have some memories. I remember there was this heinous slope above the event arena, which you could see from the arena, which had like multi-level cliffs and boulders. And I can remember that once you finished, you just saw people like stumbling around trying to find these controls. It was very well set. It was a great course. Good memories.
Yeah.
And then course of the year is something else World of O is doing. World of O, I don't know how they put out all this content.
Yeah, it's big time for them at this time of the year. So yeah, and when they have world champs and stuff, like the amount of in-depth analysis they do, it's so good.
Does Jan Kovac have some sort of bot that writes some of his articles
I don't
for his analysis?
I don't know.
I think he does. I think I remember. Certainly, I think he does. I don't know about these ones, but anyway, that's a different story.
He's got some smarts definitely working. Like the analysis he does is obviously scripted. Which is great, because that's how you process data, right? No one's going to get it done doing it all manually, so that's cool.
Yeah. And so this is for courses of the year voting.
Yeah. 2 days left, so you can definitely vote if you want to get some.
So Gene, what's your one that you thought was most interesting?
Or
unusual?
This is my. I don't think it's course of the year, but it's pretty novel, and I would love to do it just to say I've done it, because it looks bloody hard.
Yep.
Just so much repetition. It's such a strange area. The contours are kind of just wiggly and sparse, and you've got all these pits and depressions. Is this like a World War II bombing? Like, I just cannot imagine how such a terrain is formed. It's outrageous.
It's very unusual. Loads of little pits. It certainly looks man-made, doesn't it? Some sort of mining, or maybe. So that's interesting. What about your favorite course of the year?
So this is Spanish champs, long distance. I thought this was bonkers. You've got some very interesting spur gully terrain with these just patches of kind of Australian style cliffs and boulders splattered, not consistently as well. Like, it's very dense in some places, and then you've got these faster bits. So it looks like an absolute blast. I would love to do this area. Most of the forest seems white. I'm not quite sure what the undergrowth is like, but it could be quite fast if the white is, sparse trees, as there is sometimes in Spain. Often there's some like spiky grasses and stony ground that slows you down. But getting that contrast with that really fast running means it's very interesting to get the route choices to avoid the slow stuff. Straight is just not great. You've got to be smart about the lines you're picking. So this looks outstanding. I definitely this is my vote for course of the year.
Very nice. And then last, to wrap up news and things, it's more of a like ONZ public service announcement.
Yeah, basically jobs. If you're interested in orienteering mapping, then get involved. There is an ONZ mapping committee. They help discuss some of the New Zealand specific rules and help support clubs to conform to those rules. And there's also mountain bike orienteering as well. And you've seen the new sprint standard stuff that we've got to grapple with. And in addition to just the standard forest orienteering. So if you're keen, get involved. This is a committee that I'd love to be involved in if I had more time, just really into the mapping side of things. But yeah, this one won't be for me, but for someone else who is interested in mapping, then
nice.
Contribute, get a job. There's not a paid job, so I'm not sure if it's really a job, but it's certainly a contribution that will not be unnoticed.
An interesting way to stay abreast with all the mapping developments too. Put your many hours poring over maps to productive use for the community.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's about all we've got for this month. Plenty of maps for people to froth at if there's any rainy days coming up over the holiday period. Just feel like a parting thought to think about. I was thinking, Jean, you've got a multi-day event coming up. There are lots of different ways you can run a multi-day. What's your favorite format for running a multi-day? Do you want the no Oceania style where there's like a sprint, a middle, a long, it's all like individual events? Or are you a O-ringen style cumulative time person? Do you want points for each day and there's a winner at the end? What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's funny you ask because I've done all three of those combinations and I've never felt like I was missing out ever. But now that you ask the question, I realize I quite like the O-ringen style with the mass start on the last.
Yeah, the chasing start on the last day.
All coming to a head on that last day. I really like that. But I've never felt like I was missing, like we were missing something when we do like the Oceania like this. So yeah, there's obviously not a huge preference there, but I do think I like that coming to a head and there being like a final champion of the kind of series. So that obviously doesn't work very well if you have two sprints and two middles and a long, because the times blow out on the long distance and that kind of dominates the results. So then, yeah, you're back to that Oceania, try to make that old kind of Oceania you reference with the point system each day to kind of equate the series. But maybe it's less about that and more about that chasing start. I think I just love that.
You could have like your 4-day you could have your like 4-day multi-day points, and then on your last day put the points together, and there's like a chasing start with gaps. Maybe like the start order on the last day is just reverse finish order.
Yeah.
I'm a points advocate. Okay. I like the points.
Yeah. Well, interesting ideas because Northwest is planning some things for next year, and we're going to try to do some more interesting stuff like this to kind of experiment and try some new things. So Northwest has done some great chasing start things in the past, and yeah, you might just see this in 2022, some maybe not full long distance chasing starts, but like a multi-day distance chasing start.
Exciting, very exciting. Should we leave it there?
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Happy holidays, everyone, and see you in 2022.
Sounds good. Catch you, Gene. Have a great break.
If you liked the show, please support it by sharing this podcast with one person who would benefit from it. The best place to find more content like this is at genebeverage.nz, where you can find years of training blogs, race reports, podcasts, and coaching videos. If you don't want to miss future episodes, I recommend subscribing to my newsletter by visiting genebeverage.nz or by following on social media, Perfect Flow on Facebook and Gene Beverage on Instagram. For Q&A, send messages to nav@perfectflow.nz.